All right, y'all. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format today. This is, yeah, super out of the blue again. So we're just doing a straight live recording and reaction. But Joe Blackburn, the game director of Destiny 2, came out today. Again, we know we had what has been widely regarded by both Destiny 2 players as well as people who barely play the game, outside influencers, game review companies, as probably one of the worst state of the game articles that Bungie has ever had, or at least in recent memory. That plus the current massive amounts of apathy that's going on in the community, even in the lead up of the August showcase, which is happening in about 7 days. Bungie, I guess, has been just knowing that they needed to do something else to really give context and clarity to the community. And so we're going to watch through. I already watched this once, but I wanted to kind of watch it again and really like sit with what Joe is offering. But Joe, and what kind of feels like an unprecedented move, came out today and offered this kind of transparent context, adding commentary to what's been going on in the game. And so we're going to watch this and do a live react. So definitely, if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy these commentaries that we do, definitely like and subscribe. But let's go ahead and get into it.
Hey, everybody. It's Joe, and I'm just here to check in on how Destiny's going. So a few weeks ago, we put about state of the game communication that wasn't up to our standards for what y'all have come to expect for those kinds of communications. It didn't provide the high-level vision that we normally provide, and really and truly, a bunch of us were heads down working the final shape and weren't able to give it the sort of care and love that we normally put into these kind of.
All right, so I'm gonna stop there because like just off the bat, like I've been playing this game for almost 8 years, and I can't name one time, and I'm not exaggerating, I can't name one other time where Bungie clearly, to this extent, provided a clear apology for something. Bungie has very much, kind of how he's alluding to, has just been very heads down in the work. If something, deep, really needs to happen with like the sandbox change or like something that's going on, there's like a major bug, yeah, they'll come up, from, underwater and kind of talk to us. But the fact is like a lot of times when things don't go right, they just won't say, they just won't own it. And again, I'm not trying to like rag on them or talk down. It's just the truth. It's a very well documented truth. And so, I'm sure they have a number of different reasons for that. But again, the fact that Joe Blackburn, the game director of Destiny 2, was willing to at least start there. It wasn't buried underneath a 6,000 word, twab or whatever. They just came out and say, hey, we didn't meet the expectations, and we take ownership of that. For me, that was something that really struck me off the bat, is that they're willing to apologize.
Kind of communications. And that's nobody's fault but mine here on this. So I wanted to come in, talk to y'all directly, and sort of give you an update on what we thought about the state of the game that we put out and what we think about Destiny as a whole. Now, this is going to be pretty different than normal. This isn't a highly produced sort of production. It's me in my office. It's not scripted. I've got a bunch of notes here that we're going to read through. And it's going to feel probably more like you're just in a meeting with me, which is going to be rambly, and we're probably going to mess up a few times. But really, I just want to go over where
W rambles. We love good rambling.
Where we're thinking about the game. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the reveal coming out next week. We're going to talk about PvP. We're going to talk about armor. We're going to talk about our communication strategy. Those are the big ones. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with reveal. Next week, we're going to go out and we're going to show an awesome showcase for the final shape. We're really excited about a bunch of the content in there, but truly, that showcase is not a reaction to the state of the game last week. It's not a reaction to a bunch of the sentiment online, and it's definitely not a reaction to this video. It was recorded a while ago. I think I have a mustache in the video, and it's a pretty focused reveal. In the same way that the game itself is pretty focused. The final shape is focused on the light. It's focused on the enemies we've been setting up and the allies that you've come to know. It's not about a bunch of wacky new systems or wacky new themes coming into Destiny. Instead, we want to make an experience that's super easy for anyone who's ever played Destiny to come in and absolutely fall in love with the content that's before them.
And that, I think that's really one thing to like really emphasize, because a lot of people, honestly, who I'd kind of label as like delusional or pseudo delusional, were really kind of saying like, oh, you know, the final shape, excuse me, the August showcase is going to be in response to everything, and like they better show up. It's like I don't know if folks remember the showcase for Lightfall, but they even talked about it in the kind of behind the scenes pieces about how that they had to fly people out to like a professional studio. They have visual effects artists. They had to, like, some of the stuff they had vendors, you know, help produce some of that. So that is taking literal months and months of work. So anyone who is coming into the August showcase, first off, let's give Bungie their flowers where it's due. I don't think they've ever missed in a showcase. They just always put a lot of time and effort into that, and it's always visually enticing. It gets you really hype, and so we're definitely not going into the August showcase thinking it was going to be a flop. But for the people who are out here like really just thinking that like, oh, you know, they're going to be responding on these things, or they better be responding, like, you were very delusional, because not only just from a practical standpoint, these things take literal months and thousands upon thousands of dollars to do, but also in true Bungie style, they're going to keep it focused. And again, I do take note of his use of the word focused, but they are going to keep it focused on the final shape. I don't think we've ever had an August showcase or a pre-DLC showcase or preview where it actually like talked about the sandbox or talked about PvP. I don't think that's ever happened. Yeah, I too was confused, or, you know, just in responding, yeah, I was confused with why folks were even making that commentary online. But again, just to be very clear again, do not expect the August showcase to be a response to what's going on in the community, because literally there's so much time and effort goes into those things, and it's really like, think of it like a Super Bowl commercial. We're not looking at it as a community response.
I think the other thing that's really important here to know, as I sort of look at my meeting notes, is that communication is built for a pretty wide audience, much wider than probably whoever is watching this video. So what we're not going to talk about is things like a big new Strange Coin refactor and Xur revamp that's coming out in the final shape. We're not going to talk about things like a refactor of HUD elements where we're making sure the buffs and the debuffs are more clear and you can tell what's happening in higher level combat. It's going to, again, really be focused on the story, really be focused on the location, and maybe we'll get into a little bit about how the live service of Destiny is going to change after the final shape.
And also, just as a quick self promo, if you haven't already watched our video on accessibility, we actually talked about that piece right there with the HUD display. Destiny 2 is definitely better than a lot of other games. Bungie as a whole, and all of their games are a lot better at accessibility for folks who have different eyesight ability, different physical abilities, things like that. But the fact is, like, there's still a long way to go, especially in terms of just general accessibility for the game, because it's a complicated game. And so even knowing now that there's going to be updates to the HUD, what debuffs and buffs you have are going to be more clear. Literally at any given time, you can have like upwards of, 5, 6, 7, 8 buffs and debuffs, but only on the screen, you're only seeing like 3 or 4 at a time. And so knowing that, that's clarity, that helps community members be a little bit more engaged in the game, things like that. So again, those things aren't small, but also, again, to his point, that don't have an expectation that they were going to come up in the August showcase, because the August showcase, again, literally, I think the best kind of metaphor, analogy, whatever I can think of in the moment is like, you have to think of it like a Super Bowl commercial. You're not getting like the full deep dive of everything you're getting in the product, but you're getting like this really super hyped up thing that's going to capture your attention, get you engaged, and want you to go find out more information about the product that is on display. But again, it's a Super Bowl commercial essentially.
Following that showcase, Dan, our GM, and I are going to be on set taking questions, dotting T's, crossing I's, or maybe the reverse of that, on what you've seen in the showcase. So we'll provide a little bit more clarity on what was shown, and we'll probably get into some ways that maybe our philosophy on the final shape or specific details might have changed over the last few weeks since we recorded the showcase. All right, I think that's it for reveal. If I'm looking at the sheet next, we've got PvP. So let's start with the state of PvP right now in Destiny. What have we been doing? What have we been focused on? We've been really focused on sandbox balance. So like a big focus of effort last year was just making sure that Strand came out in a good place and got to live sort of in harmony with the rest of our Crucible ecosystem.
Hey, so just off bat, shout out to Strand, because like Strand, I don't think anyone really like Stasis. The original OG Stasis was terrible. That was literally like unplayable sandbox. And this is coming as someone who's not a PvP main, but I still play PvP in Destiny 2. And it was unplayable. And even the PvP like veterans and mains could tell you it was unplayable for months and months and months. But Strand came out and it was powerful, it was potent, but it wasn't OP. It wasn't burdensome. Yes, there were some builds out there that definitely like took up your time and space, but like ultimately, I think they do get a star for the way that Strand is shipped, given the fact that it did ship so, in my opinion, balance, and in a lot of other people's opinion, balance. So yeah.
System. Aside from that, we've been focusing on putting up 2 weapon balances per season, one at the start, one in the mid-season. And we've been focusing on ritual updates to PvP, be this mode updates, point updates, reward updates at the beginning of each season. Finally, we flip over to our agenda. We've been focused on making 1 new map and a few reprises a year. Now, all that aside, I think it's fair to say this approach is not producing the Crucible that our players expect us. So what are we going to do? How are we going to change? First, let's talk about maps. It's clear that the sort of slow trickle of PvP maps isn't having the effect we want. And although it gets an injection of PvP maps every so often into the ecosystem, it's also forcing this like 1 new map a year. It means we're trying to build a map that has to do everything, which means it can't be good at anything. So next year,
I think
we're going to change.
I think real quick, that's one of those like hard truths, right? Again, being very clear, criticize me if you want, but again, I do have an opinion. Even if I'm not a PvP main, I do play PvP in this game, and I play PvP in a lot of other games, a lot of other FPSs, and to be in a space where like we're not going to sit here and make excuses for how they've distributed resources around making new maps, but them at least giving, from Joe Blackburn's perspective, giving out their own kind of self-criticism, saying that like trying to like focus on making 1 new map, which again, they had made many promises, and we're not going to go into that. There's many other people who have really more in-depth analysis if you want it, but there are documented evidences of how Bungie promised maps for years and just hasn't delivered. And that's why a lot of people are justifiably upset. And so for them to be like, you know, yeah, we have to rethink the way we're doing it.
Our philosophy. Instead of a slow trickle of maps throughout the year, we're going to focus our effort into a single map pack that's free for everyone. So imagine new maps coming in 1 drop where we can make a bunch of new experiences that can all be good at specific things and adds a big variety in a single drop.
That's actually bananas. That's actually bananas. Having more variety in the maps that we have access to is absolutely going to shift the game. You know, again, for folks who have a deeper analysis over which maps are better, some people are like symmetrical maps are better, some people are like asymmetrical maps are better, all those different things. We don't know right now which maps are coming back, or at least I don't think they're telling us right now. But the fact that there's even a promise that they're going to give us a map pack is huge. Now, obviously, the questions and kind of concerns come up of like which maps, obviously, how well they're going to be maintained. Are they up to date with the current sandbox in terms of like how people's play styles are? You know, I think there are a lot of questions that come to mind with this, but ultimately the fact that like our PvP colleagues and peers and homies are finally going to be able to get additional maps, I think is huge. And even just for someone who is, I do dabble in comp, but more primarily 6v6. If there's new maps, I feel like that livens up Iron Banner, that livens up, game modes like Supremacy that a lot of folks liked. Just a lot of opportunity for like, again, and I think that's why, like, for me, I think it's important to speak on it, is because as like a casual PvP player in Destiny 2, I feel like it makes me want to like tell my friends, again, if this goes over well and that the right maps and it's a good experience, it makes me want to actually tell my friends and other folks to like, hey, get in here. This is actually a good time. It makes me actually want to play Iron Banner for a reason, because like when I'm able to have fun because the maps are interesting, it's a good time to like, it's an enjoyable experience. I'm gonna naturally spend more time
next year. Now, this is a shift from our strategy, so it's going to take us time to sort of understand the details of what we're putting out here and getting that out to y'all next year. Okay, maps are great, but we still really believe that PvP is about the foundation, and new maps aren't going to solve a foundation. So, modes. First of all, I'm really excited about what's coming out in Season 22, first with Checkmate. Checkmate is a mode all about that sort of primary fire, basic weapon excellence of Bungie games, and being able to show that excellence in a PvP setting. It's what a bunch of our like really marksman style PvP players have been asking for a long time, since Destiny 1. And we're finally going to put a mode like that in the game. And I'm super excited for a bunch of those players.
I'm super excited because like the fact that like, oh my God, so many different metas, especially like the trip mine meta was so terrible. And again, I love ability spam as much as the next person, and being able to like figure out a really cool build to always have like the stasis turns up or trip mine. I love that, right? I have those builds saved in dim just like everybody else. But also, I would prefer to get killed by like other weapons, by like good gunplay, and to just get like spammed by like abilities doesn't feel fun. And so knowing that like Checkmate and a couple of these other modes are going to come in the game, that build in space, I'm not going to say guarantees, but it builds in space for you to engage more in the gunplay side of Destiny 2, which again, people far and wide acknowledge that the gunplay in Destiny 2 feels good. For us to have more opportunities to lean into that versus just pure ability spam and getting shield bashed by a Titan or things like that. For me, again, that plus new maps or potentially just supporting old maps that we used to have and putting them back in the game, those things combined are feeling, again, we don't have it confirmed, we don't have the details, but it feels very promising.
That experience starting right away in Season 22. Next, we've got Relic. And so Relic is a different kind of mode, and it sort of is a building off of these experiments that we've been doing with things like Fortress or Eruption, where it's about this quality Destiny sandbox experience of your guns and your powers that escalates when you succeed in sort of a crazy mayhem-like experience. And we think the balance of those two things is a really great time to sort of spin away from other parts of the game and get the full spectrum of what Destiny has to offer. I'm really excited about things like Fortress, and I'm really excited that Relic is going to provide an experience like this that is both, fun for people that are really good at slaying out and also has these sort of like high octane hijinks moments to it. But that's what we've already committed to. So let's talk about some new things that we think we need to do. One, we know we need to bring more of our modes into the core playlists. We've been putting a lot out in labs. We've been putting a lot out in Iron Banner. And to be honest, there's a few obstacles to us putting these into our core playlists, be this VO or small bug level issues that we just were like, I don't know if we're ready. I think that has been blocking us from doing the right thing here. So we're going to take on some of that bug wake. We're going to take on a little bit of the jank, and we're going to say, no. This isn't worth us not putting into the mode. And so we're going to take some of these modes that we've been putting in Crucible Labs, that we've been putting in Iron Banner, and taking them and putting them into the core PvP experience that most of our players experience.
Hey, yo, that's why. Yeah. So, what was a flood of thoughts this game? But I think one of the first is like, first off, as a community, let's be honest, outside of like the super hardcore dedicated PvP folks, who was really actually taking advantage of labs? Crickets. I think it was a great idea, and I think labs have their place. Especially like trials labs. But I feel like, that's, that's a touchy subject for a lot of folks. But for me, the fact that we had Crucible labs, it wasn't the fact that I wasn't engaged in it. It was often times when I wanted to or had the energy to play those modes. There just wasn't a lot of people and things like that. So for me, it's just like, I feel like, yeah, there could be more value. And rather than having those one-off tests, and then we have this random mode, or we have like a cool mode that actually works, but it's only in game for 3 months. And Joe Blackburn kind of saying that, okay, rather than, well, again, I'm assuming that to some extent they'll still have some type of like labs or like test trial, like, hey, try out this new game mode or something. But for him to say like, hey, we're actually more invested in just getting things into the game rather than, again, what we say on this channel all the time, stop letting perfect be the enemy of the good. That's why, sometimes, like we just got to get a video out and talk about a subject at hand. We don't do it perfectly, but we always try and get better. And I actually would love to see that philosophy from Bungie more often than not, of like, stop letting perfect be the enemy of the good, of just like get things out, especially as it pertains to, or I would say particular as it pertains to PvP. Obviously, don't put a raid out or don't put like a dungeon out and it's all glitchy and buggy. We're looking at you, duality. But the fact that they're willing to engage more in this PvP side of, like, hey, Crucible Labs, all those things were like really interesting and cool, but also we were overthinking actually getting those things live in game. And for them to take a step in that direction and be like, no, we're going to get these in the game, or make a step in the direction of getting these in the game, I think is huge. Like, more activities to do. Do you know how many, like, again, in this is my last thing, in the lieu of playing Destiny 2 PvP, I have been playing a lot of Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone. And do you know how many game modes Call of Duty has? DMZ, Warzone Resurgence, trios, duos, quads, all these different things. It has like, what, 30 different modes. And so like I think like, Bungie doesn't I just make the comparison because I think Bungie shouldn't fear like having too many things at once. People are going to find the modes that throw these things in the game, one, and then two, people are going to find the modes that they're most attracted to or that they're going to have the most fun with their friends with. And again, I promise you, okay, I can't promise you, but I have a strong sense that those are things that are actually going to keep people and also bring new people to the game if you have more of that variety versus like people open up the Crucible screen and see like 5 game modes that they don't actually really enjoy, turn off the game and go play something else, right? Versus having more variety, allowing more people to like have something. It's like, oh, actually, let me try, Relic, let me try Mayhem, let me try Scorch, let me try all the different modes that we have. And maybe that actually leads them down the road to eventually maybe getting into some competitive and, some other things in the game.
We've also heard a lot about comp, and particularly about the way that we reward points in comp. So we want to take a new approach.
Yeah, real quick, comp feels terrible. I forget what what Joe's about to say. Comp feels terrible. Currently, comp feels terrible. I grind comp in so many other games, whether it be Call of Duty, Apex. There's this like other game called Farlight 84. Yeah, I will grind in an FPS game if it feels worth it. And like to know that like you could win games in comp and still like, I don't know, it was just weird in terms of like the point differential of just like when you actually could get points. And they feel like if you lost a lot of points, but if you won, you only won a few points. And it's just like the system felt bad. So that's my pre-commentary before Joe says what he's about to say, but it felt bad. Absolutely.
Approach the way that we're balancing points in comp. Right now, we think it's just weighted too much on your personal MMR versus the people you're playing against. And when you win or when you lose a game, it can be really unpredictable how many points you're getting. We're going to go to a simpler system where winning or losing just matters more. Finally, we want to get great modes like Countdown Rush into competitive and get modes that people are less excited about, like Rift, out of the rotation.
All right, so real quick, this is not copium. This is not copium. I repeat, this is not copium. I love Rift with all of my heart and soul. I love a Rift on the right map with friends. I love that. Rift with randoms on the wrong map. Absolutely, I agree with everybody else. Is absolutely terrible, but I think Rift is actually a really great game mode. It's one of those game modes that you could build like a small, like local tourney or tournament around with the community members. Um, for charity, you could, there's so many different things. But again, it is one of those things like on the right map with the right people. It's an amazing game mode. And I think the first weekend Rift came out, that's what we saw. But then when, there's matchmaking changes, there's a whole bunch of other things that factored into it. And then when you're matchmaking and you're playing Rift, and also you're playing a game mode where, again, PvP players, I mean, actually, no, Destiny 2 players don't like playing the objective. Hard truth pill. They don't. And it's an objective game mode. So, comms are important, playing with people who are actually going to try and take advantage of the objective are important. And to know that, it's probably not the best mode to just boot up and get matchmade with randoms. I understand why people don't like it, but absolutely no copium. I love the game mode when it's on the right map and I'm playing with friends. It's literally one of my favorite game modes to play.
Experience more about the game modes that our players enjoy. Okay, so we've talked map strategy, we've talked modes. I want to talk one other effort we want to do here. We're going to bolster what we call a PvP strike team. Throughout Destiny development, we've built strike teams for efforts before. This has probably been sort of invisible to you all in the audience, but in moments like in between Curse of Osiris and Warmind, we built a strike team for Destiny investment. This team was sort of built around, hey, how can we make it more rewarding and more enjoyable to just get stuff in Destiny 2? This team built stuff very quickly, like what would eventually become the masterworking system. They also went through, knocked out a whole bunch of bugs, knocked out a whole bunch of quality life issues. We're going to take the same effort and we're going to build a PvP strike team around the same principle, but have it focused on the Crucible. It's going to be led by PvP developers, and it has a really interesting playbook for how this works. And that's that first the team decides what they want to do. They as a team get together, say, hey, these are the changes we want to make. Those changes go through me. They go through our systems CD. And then when we say, yep, those are great changes, they immediately get communicated with you all in the community, right? So this.
Okay, so this is interesting to hear. For two reasons. One, to hear that Bungie already has structures in place to be nimble and flexible and actually address things. So again, Joe talking about these strike teams, and he alludes to the fact that they've utilized strike teams. And again, what I'm kind of hearing from him, or at least what I'm interpreting, was obviously you have your normal day-to-day departments and team structures that you're working with, but when you need all hands on deck push, or you just need a very focused effort, you pull in people from different areas who may normally be working on XYZ project, and then you form a new team, usually for the temporary, maybe 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, to focus down and work on something. Again, I don't know that that's an explicit system, but again, that's what it sounds similar to. And the fact that they've done it before and now they're going to do it with PvP is encouraging. But also, again, kind of on the concern critical side is it's why, what were the factors that took it so long for it to get like this? Our PvP colleagues have been talking about the state of PvP for years. And if you already had this internal organizational structure, or at least you had the flexibility to make that type of shift, to say, hey, we're going to pull off Susan, we're going to pull off Tommy, or we're going to pull off these 20 people from various teams, add them to the PvP team and do a focus effort. Again, I don't know the logistics, but I'm assuming that's what they're kind of doing. And then to what Joe Blackburn is saying, and then we're going to communicate back to the community, get feedback. If that was something they already had access to in terms of an internal process and protocol, I do partially have questions of why now. and also clarity of like what does that mean for future pushes when the community inevitably is going to have future concerns about something. Is this just for the now to kind of like get PvP people to like chill out and stay engaged with the game, or is it something that's more so like, you know, hey, we just kind of like threw this together, you know?
To be going out in a twid, going out in a Twitter post, or going out on Reddit, right? Just sort of some immediate blast, like, hey, these are the changes coming. And those changes get communicated even before they start getting implemented. And then we start getting implemented. We found this formula is a really successful way for us to be able to push through changes quickly into the community. And I think one of the most exciting parts about these strike teams is we build them based off of community feedback. So these strike teams are built from the ground up to look at, hey, what are the pain points that are hitting our community the most? And so all this list is going to be built and burned down from, hey, these are the big issues the PvP community is looking at in Destiny.
All right. So again, similar to what I just said, it's going to come down to like logistics and how this works and looks like in real time, because I was encouraged, but then that like last bit of what he said kind of was a little bit discouraging, because again, it comes down to like, you say that you're going to build these teams and create these structures and have these opportunities for active and engaging feedback to respond to community needs and to respond to community concerns, but then also it's the question of like, why now, right? Why does obviously apathy, people not really playing the game, some of the lowest numbers I've seen in terms of Twitch and YouTube viewership in a while, and it's been consistently low for months now, and we're not talking like end of the season low, like literally like months ago people kind of just stopped playing the game and started playing Diablo 4 or Remnant 2 and these other games that have come out. And so for me, I just, that's a question I have. Again, I'm not questioning, Joe. I'm not like talking down to like Joe or the team. It's like a clarifying question. I would love to know is it's like, why now? What is special about this moment that like you all are now like talking about the strike team or talking about like being responsive to feedback when it feels, again, I'm making emphasis on these words because sometimes people like to take my words out of context, but it feels like, I don't know. It's kind of, you're just kind of placating the moment. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's what it feels like, versus if you're saying you had all this technology and all these internal processes and all these resources, like what was keeping you from like implementing these earlier. Also, side note, Reddit is probably not the best place for community staff members to be engaging in the first place, because Reddit is far more toxic than anybody gets on Twitter. Like Twitter can get toxic. Destiny 2 Twitter can get toxic. Destiny 2 YouTube can get toxic, but Reddit by far, my God, yeah, that's a whole different story.
That's the end of the PvP part of our agenda. If I'm looking at our notes here, I think we're now going to talk about armor. It's probably been a while since we talked about this part about armor, but we might have talked about it before. I want to start with talking about like armor visual categories in Destiny. So at the top, we've got what we call aspirational armor. This is stuff like raids, trials, dungeons. We want the armor that comes from these activities to be flashy, or to like really talk about the core of what that experience is. It's really important that when players earn these armors, they feel proud, they want to wear them, they want to show them off in the tower. Next, we've got silver, right? This is armor that you can buy for the store for silver. It's important for us that this feels like it's sort of breaking the mold of what you could expect in a Destiny game. It's our place to experiment with stuff that's a little bit fourth wall breaky. And importantly, we want anyone that spends silver on armor to feel like, hey, it was worth it, right? Like I got my money's worth when I spent this armor. It was cool. Then we have what I call near.
What I will say is like, I feel like, and again, I'm pretty sure he's going to go into an explanation of why they put certain resources to what, but like, I feel like the Eververse armor hits the mark. I don't know too many people outside of, respectfully. I'm not talking about down anybody, but respectfully, the Assassin's Creed armor set, in the previews and the trailers, oh my god, it looked gorgeous. But then when you saw it in the Eververse, I was like, yeah, no, I'm not feeling this. It was like God of War, Assassin's Creed, and Horizon Zero Dawn collab for all the three classes: Warlock, Hunter, and Titan. And none of those armor pieces look good. And I'm sure that collaboration cost them a lot of money. I mean, I'm sure some people bought it, but even in the wild, just like going around doing PvP or PvE, I really haven't seen those armor sets. Outside of those, I would say armor sets that are paid in Eververse typically hit, right? And so like people will literally wear them out. They will not change that armor. They will buy it and not change it for months upon months because they love it so much. So I really feel like the Eververse armor and whoever they put on that team, I really feel like they really don't miss, right? So it would be, yeah, I'm curious on what he's going to say, but yeah, like I think it's the other aspects that actually tend to feel like they miss the mark, not the Eververse pieces.
Narrative armor. This is the stuff that you'll see in any sort of our marketing trailers. This is the stuff that you earn in the season pass. It's the stuff that you earn in the post game of a campaign. And it's really about driving home what that specific moment in time was. So in season 21, it's deep sea diver armor, right? In Witch Queen, it's a sort of like weird paranormal detective armor. You'll see what it is in the final shape here in a week or so. But that armor for us is really about like driving home this clear, consistent fantasy of like, oh yeah, I was there. I remember that time in Destiny. Finally, we've got rituals and blues. And this space has always sort of been about that core Guardian fantasy. What does the Guardian look like that you would imagine sort of the stereotypical everyday Guardian, or the Guardian that you see on the front line? Maybe tragically a Guardian that tried to go into the portal of the Traveler and then gets cut up into a million pieces. This is that spot. And we need a lot of armor here to sort of flesh out those fantasies. Now, sometime in the middle of last year, we sort of reevaluated our priorities on armor. And we said, hey, we need to be spending more on the armors that people care the most about, the people that earn, that spend, that do all this to this so they can sort of get these armors in the game. So this is like our PvP stuff in trials, our aspirational stuff in raids and dungeons, our narrative stuff. We thought we weren't consistently hitting the bar enough in those looks. And I think that since that initiative, we've been really successful in this. We've put out great stuff in terms of like cowboy armor for Spire. We've put out awesome stuff in the Root of Nightmares raid. And we've put out a bunch of awesome armor sets for sort of a deep sea fantasy last season and Season of the Deep. Now, what we failed to do when we reprioritized, hey, where are our resources going, is communicate this to you. So we knew that when we made this change, we weren't going to be able to make a ritual armor set every single year. And we thought, okay, well, that's fine. We have a lot that fits this sort of base Guardian fantasy. But we should have communicated that out to you. And so, one, I'd like to say, this is not a thing that we're never going to invest in. We're investing in it again in the final shape. There's going to be a whole nother ritual suite of armor. And we're excited to sort of replenish that base Guardian fantasy. But just because we're doing that in the final shape year, that doesn't mean that we communicated this soon enough.
Again, I can't say this enough. Twice we get 2 points of accountability from Bungie in one video. Twice. Yeah, I literally can't understate how again, for me as a longtime player, again, I haven't played since the beta, but again, for going on 8 years of playing, 8 years is a long time to commit to anything. And for playing for just about 8 years, and on console, on PC, through the good, the bad, till now, I can't, like, in my memory banks, like, I just don't know where the other moments, big moments where Bungie has come out and said, hey, we take accountability. Hey, we're sorry. And yes, that is a criticism. Not a malicious criticism, but it is a criticism of Bungie that I feel like this should be the norm, not to feel so shocked. And I'm sure others are probably shocked or, just surprised by this as well. But again, I say that because I pair that with also saying that, like, hand in hand, shout out to you for taking that accountability, both in the beginning of saying like, hey, we kind of missed the mark, and then now saying like, hey, we didn't communicate well enough. Again, I'm not going to sit here an armchair dev, armchair director, and say that like, hey, this is the exact way that you should communicate. There are absolutely ways that I think Bungie can and should be better about communicating with the community. But for me, in this moment, I'm more kind of enamored by the fact that, you know, we've gotten 2 apologies in 1 video, which yeah, is kind of wild to me. I'm not gonna lie to you.
So also for this year, we want to take an armor set that we were going to put in the Eververse, and we're saying, no. We should have communicated this earlier. It's really important that our fans can trust us. Let's take this armor set that we were going to use in season 22 for the Eververse set, and let's say, no, it's going to be free, and we're going to put it as a ritual rewards. So next season, before the end of the season, you should see a brand new armor set that you can earn through playing Strikes, Crucible, Gambit as like a ritual reward for doing this, a brand new armor look.
Okay,
again,
wow. So that is oh wow, yeah. I'm not gonna hold you, Bungie. You caught me a little flabbergasted because they know how much money, like they're again, we don't know Bungie's financials, right? And probably never will for anyone who doesn't work for Bungie. But like there was that one year where we found out the finances of how much they make from the Eververse during the winter event. And it was like a obscene amount of money, right? And that's also kind of fueled some, you know, frustrations, putting it lightly, from the community. And so knowing that, I say that to say it's like the foundation being like, we have a glimpse of how much money they make from Eververse, and for them to say like, hey, and this to me is very clearly a reaction to the current state of things in the community, but they're saying like, hey, we heard you, we're going to fix it in the future, but then the short term fix is that we're actually going to take one of the sets that we were going to sell for in real life mucho dinero, greenbacks, dollar bills, y'all. That was going to make them a lot of money. We're actually going to release it free to everyone. For me, these are the insert applause track. These are the moves that like we've been looking for from Bungie. Obviously, it's a concern because is it too little, too late? I think that's still something to think about. But in terms of like the armor conversation, I know that sparked a lot of conversation in my channel in terms of the videos we put out about it, but then also more broadly in the community. So knowing that they're going to take something out of the Eververse, out of their pockets, and then they're going to allow it to be free for the community, I think is huge. Now, is that going to be the norm? Absolutely not. This definitely feels like a one-time thing to like really get people back into the communities. Like, hey, give us another chance. And also, it kind of like to me signals that they actually really do believe in what they're going to produce for the final shape. So again, a lot of this is just signaling about like what's happening currently in the future. But like to me, that's actually taking directly money out of their pockets. Thousands and thousands of dollars out of their pockets to say like, hey, we are gonna like make this gesture, and hopefully, you know, folks will be engaged, will be good. The flip side of that, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, is that the flip side is it's also a theory test, right? Because in theory, everyone was up in arms like, well, if the armor sets for ritual armors for Vanguard and Crucible were better, we'd actually engage them. This is also like theory test for them. This actually allows them to prove a point, right? This allows them that like, and again, not saying that they're maliciously doing this, but this also allows them the opportunity to be like, okay, well, we gave y'all one of our premier sets for free and people still didn't use them, and so that's going to justify us not doing it in the future. Again, I'm not saying that's the thought process that Bungie is taking, but I am saying they would be technically justified in that approach, would they not? I mean, think about it. Is this like if the complaints were, hey, you're taking away our ritual sets, but if the ritual sets were better, we'd actually use them. Well, here they are saying they're going to give us one of their premier Eververse, actually have to pay with real life money armor sets, and they're going to make it free. If people still don't use those armor sets or really don't engage with them, you know, it kind of proves their point. But again, that's another topic for another day.
We're confident in our strategy going forward. We believe this is the right priority going forward, but also it's our responsibility to communicate this stuff sooner. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by all the fans. All right, I think that's armor. Let's talk about comms. Okay, we've talked a lot about how the development team is very busy. And I think that although we really want to be focused on delivering great content to y'all and making sure that's our top priority, that doesn't mean our communications have to suffer. And so the first thing, we want to be talking to y'all more. But talking to y'all more, our number one priority, we have to keep our community members and our community leaders safe from the Bungie side.
100%. 100%.
I don't want anyone that signs up to come work at Bungie and to talk to y'all about the game to have to worry about their personal safety. So we're going to keep using our branded accounts. You'll see these on Twitter and you'll see these on Reddit, right? And we want to be using those accounts with more personality, going and talking to y'all more. The other thing is me. I play the game a bunch. And right now, I don't have a bunch of time to be writing sort of big, long blog posts like you would assume. But when season 22 rolls around again, I'm going to be in the game a lot. I'm going to be playing a lot. So what we want to do is commit to a few times next season and the season after. I'm just going to stream me playing the game.
Joe Blackburn about the stream. Let's go. Shout out. Okay, so I could definitely see it potentially getting hectic. And so I really, Joe, just speaking to you right now, speaking to the team, please make sure the moderation team is on point. Maybe we need to go all emotes, only mode, only do polls or something. I don't know, but I could definitely see it getting out of hand. But also I can see, thinking on the negative, but thinking on the positive, I actually think this would be really cool, like having the game director stream again. The community has a bunch of resources, beautiful, amazing resources. We have podcasts, both audio and visual podcasts. We have streamers, we have Sherpas, we have content creators. We have so many different people that show up and exist in this community, but like none of them are actually, well, I can't say none of them, but like they're not like primarily people who work at the company or like have this high level insight that Joe Blackburn would have. So him coming on stream, maybe Luke Smith, maybe. But him alone would be great, as well as maybe any others that would come on and they're playing the game, they're streaming, they're having a good time. I think that also not only model how people can exist in the community and humanize them a little bit more as people, like, don't send these people death threats. Like, don't be like literally a toxic jerk. Like, see these people, whether you like the game at any stage or not. These are people with lives and families, and they deserve to be safe. And so I think this is an opportunity to like humanize them a little bit more in that way. So, and also again, I think a Joe stream would be very interesting, honestly. But definitely you got to make sure that moderation team is on point.
Talk to me, and it's not going to be reveal packed, but it is a great time to just be like, hey, check in with Joe. These are the things that we're feeling, get his opinions on them. And hopefully if I can get and play with some of our like elite players, learn a bit more about the game. I learned a ton from playing with y'all in the community about different builds that are exciting and different ways to roll. So I want to commit, get out there, play some PvP, learn from some experts, and play alongside all of you next season. All right, the only thing that I have left here is close. So I think that means my rambling on here today is over. Thanks so much for listening to this, for watching this. Really excited to see a bunch of y'all next week at the reveal.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, insert applause track. Just in terms of my final thoughts as well, because we've given our commentary throughout this, but yeah, like my hat, my figurative hat goes off to Joe Blackburn. And again, I trust him when he says he wrote this. It was his own thoughts. It was, I trust that, he didn't consult legal or anything. I trust that, he cares about the community, cares about the game. And, this is coming from the heart. And again, as someone who works in the nonprofit world, I wouldn't say I've been in Joe's position, so I want to be clear about that up front. But as someone who's worked in the nonprofit world for a number of years, being in a position where like you're just working back to back, and even if you're trying to like get products out there that are philanthropic and that are beneficial for community members, sometimes you don't always have the opportunity to like lift your head up from the work, so to speak, and actually like speak to people and give additional clarity. And so even I forget the exact phrase or saying, but it's like even like, was it the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Or whatever. I don't know if that's the right framing, but essentially, I think y'all get what I'm saying. Is it's like you can have all the best intentions in the world, but you can't always like dictate the impact that your work and your words and your actions have on people. And so, for me, I think this is a big step forward. Whether we continue to move forward is always the question. We offer constructive criticism, we offer solutions where we need to. That's part of this channel. Again, as I said before, definitely like and subscribe if you're interested in like social commentary about this game, Destiny 2, as well as other games. That's what we do here. We get into some really good community driven conversations, and I think similar to what Joe had offered today, it's a really good space to like hear from people, right, and humanize them a little bit, and not just see 6,000 words on a twab, right, an article, and then kind of just get really angry and throw our hands up in the air. And again, people hate nuance. People want to be either extremely happy or extremely sad, but that's not the reality of the things. Reality of things is like life is nuanced, life is complex, and when we have these moments to be able to get a little bit of additional clarity, especially from someone at this level. Again, a lot of the critique, including myself, has been that like, hey, we're not really like criticizing devs. We're not criticizing, the staff at the lower and middle levels. A lot of, what we're seeing in terms of the direction of the game is coming from people high up, right? And so to have someone high up not just like, put out the article like they did with the state of game, but also follow up and add this context for me is super encouraging. On top of the fact, y'all, I'm going to keep talking about on top of the fact that we got not one, but two apologies. We got two apologies where previously we had been getting zero apologies from Bungie, right? So for me, I think it's a really good time. In general, to maybe like take a second look. Obviously, we were already, with the collective we, including myself, we're already preparing to take a kind of second look at Destiny and to kind of see like, hey, what else you got for us? Is this really it? Is this really the end? Given the fact that the August showcase is around the corner, and a lot of people are like, if it's good, I'll stick around. If it's bad, I'm gone. I'm not even playing Final Shape. And so I think this was a solid move. And again, I believe it's well-intentioned. I'm not believing that this is like super strategic. Maybe that's naive of me, but I do believe that this was like a genuine move. And I think even from the little bit of response that I have seen from it already, people are really appreciating this. And again, this is the type of communication that I can say, again, I can't speak for everyone, but I can say that a large portion of the community has vocalized that we want to see. And again, no, we're not out here, or at least the good part of the community like us, we're not out here like, oh, doxing people or like being talked. We're not those people, right? Those of us who really just genuinely want to have a conversation with Bungie, really want to understand where your head is at. Like rather, again, I think the armor piece, and this is going to be my last thing, I think the armor piece conversation is really clear, is for them to just come out and say, hey, we're taking this away, and then not really offering an explanation, or they kind of did. They're like, you all aren't using it, so we're taking it away. I know so many different people who can speak to that experiences, like being a kid when they're younger. It's just like they left a toy out and they forgot to put it up, in their toy box or wherever they're supposed to put it. And the parent who's tired, who's been working double shifts or whatever they've been working to provide for the family, comes across a toy, steps on it or whatever, it's just like, you're not using this, I'm gonna throw it away, right? And throws it away, not knowing that that toy actually held a special meaning to the child, right? But then when you're able to have like context, is like, hey, like I just forgot to put the toy up, or, you know, like when you're able to have the little bit of more nuance that we've kind of spoken to a number of times already. I think that's what's really important to like keeping a healthy dialogue going forward. So again, if you're someone out here being toxic, being a jerk, screw you. You don't deserve to play this game. Sorry, not sorry. That's my hot take. You don't deserve to play any games if you're just going to be toxic. We can disagree civilly. I say that all the time on this channel. We can disagree civilly. We can have different opinions. But people who are being toxic, doxing, harassing, assaulting staff, you just don't deserve this game. You don't deserve to be a part of the conversation. But for folks like us who are here to listen, hear, potentially even have our minds change, it's okay for your minds to change. I think today was such a solid move forward. Shout out to you, Joe. Really appreciate you. And yeah, like I'm looking for. I was already looking forward to the August showcase because Bungie knows how to throw together a trailer. Okay, but now I'm on a more deeper level. I'm a little bit more encouraged about the intentions of Bungie given this status. So look out for more. Again, like, comment, and subscribe. We do a lot of social commentary. Like that's kind of the only thing we do. But we do game reviews. We do guides on the channel. But that's what we're really geared towards here is social commentary. So we talk about these things. And so I'd love to hear in the comment section, what was your thoughts about this announcement from Joe Blackburn today? What are things that you potentially would have loved to see or hear from Joe Blackburn, as well as what are you thinking about the future of Destiny? So thank you. And y'all know what I like to say. As always, I'll see y'all Starside. Peace.